because we've got so much to talk about today. Merle, can you see all right if I stand here? Okay, so today we are still in our Master's series, Masters of Science, and it's getting more and more intense, isn't it?
Yes.
And it's not going to get any more intense than this story that I have for you today. Today we are talking about the battle between, oh yes, are you familiar with this?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. So I'm going to tell you the story of both men, but you cannot tell the story of one man without telling the story of the other. Their lives are so intertwined, and they affected their entire lives. All right, each other's entire life. It's quite a story. But I'm going to start like I normally do, all right? I'm going to start with one, and then we'll bring the other one in on it, all right? Let's start with this one. You know who he is, correct?
Yes.
Yes, so Thomas Edison, do you know that he was called Alva his whole life until he got famous?
Really?
Yeah, and then he went with Thomas. So, so he was growing up, he was Alva, and that's actually little Alva.
Looks like a little girl.
Right there. Yes, well, we've learned all the way back to Ernest Hemingway that in this time, they dressed little boys.
That's like little girls.
Yeah, but for a short time, and then they went over to boy clothes, except for Mrs. Hemingway. She didn't do that. She chose a different course for poor Ernest. Well, he was an interesting little kid. There's a lot of stories about him, interesting stories about his childhood that we have, and I've chosen a couple for you. His curiosity often got the better of him. One of the stories is that he absolutely realized how to hatch eggs, right? He saw the mother goose, and he knew exactly what to do. He knew how this thing happened, and so he attempted it, and despite weeks of sitting on these goose eggs, he sat on them for weeks. He sat on the goose eggs every day for weeks, and despite that, they did not hatch. And it could be this early experience in the life of little Alva Edison that led him to the belief that nothing is a failure. He has a quote, and he says, "I have never failed. I've only found 10,000 ways to do it wrong." And then I find the way to do it right. And I think it started right here, because his spirit was not dampened by the fact that he never hatched those goose eggs. He never did. Actually, as he gets a little bit older, this is also little Alva. As he gets a little bit older there in Ohio, he has a real strong curiosity about things that, well, I guess are a little bit dangerous, because at one point he decided that he was just going to light a barn on fire to see what would happen.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, just to see what would happen. So he lit that barn on fire, and curiously enough, coincidentally perhaps, it was shortly after this that the family moved to Michigan.
There were no animals in there. I wonder why.
No.
So the family moves to Michigan when Alva is 7 years old. All right, and this is the house. This is the actual house that he lived in Michigan. Now, he was not well educated. This is a man who's thought to be one of the geniuses of the time, correct? He didn't go to university. He barely went to elementary school. In fact, they added it all up, and his entire childhood education, his entire education would add up to about 2 years.
Wow.
2 years of education. His mother did what she could do to supplement his education at home. But other than that, he spent very, very little time in school.
Was that because he was hard of hearing?
You're preempting me, John.
Here you go again, John.
Sorry.
John, your pet is supposed to preempt me. You're not supposed to do that. No, that's not the reason why, because he didn't have hearing loss at that point in time. His hearing loss came later, a little bit later. But he was still an industrious young man, a very industrious young man. He, at the age of 12, got himself a job selling newspapers on the train. This is the 1800s. Trains are a big thing, aren't they? A very big thing. And there was a daily train in Michigan, in his hometown, that it went back and forth. And so he was on the train all day, and he sold newspapers to the passengers that boarded and all day long. That's what he did. Well, he had some downtime apparently, because on the train, little Alva, who is endlessly curious, he sets up a little chemistry lab
Oh,
on the train. There's a little chemistry lab on the train. Now, what could go wrong? What could possibly go wrong?
They move to next.
Right? So, of course, eventually, one day, the inevitable happened, and he accidentally causes a fire on the train. Right? So what do you think the conductor did?
He threw him out.
Yeah, he threw him out. So that was the end of his newspaper job. But you know that saying, when God closes one door,
It's another.
yes, he opens a window somewhere, or however that goes. And when he got thrown off the train, the father of this little boy had heard that he got thrown off the train for causing an explosion. And the father was indebted to Alva because shortly before that, Alva Edison saved the life of his 3-year-old son. His 3-year-old son had run out onto the tracks. And Edison ran out. He was 15 years old at the time, and he ran out and scooped up this little 3-year-old boy and saved his life. Well, the father wanted to help him out. He owed him. And the father was a telegraph operator. That was huge at the time, wasn't it? Right? Post-Civil War, huge at the time. That was like the major technology of the time. And so Alva Edison was fascinated with this, and he really wanted to learn all about it. And it was the telegraph that changed his entire life. So this incident, this job that he got from this man was what changed his entire life. It's now, John, that he starts to notice that he's losing his hearing. He starts to notice that he's got some hearing loss. And what he says, what Thomas Edison later on says, is that it was something that helped him. It wasn't something that he saw as an impairment. It helped him focus. It helped him concentrate. He was laser focused in on studying whatever he was interested in at the time, and he didn't have outside distractions. The noise didn't bother him. He could be in a room in the telegraph office. He could be in the room with other people, and they're having trouble, a little bit of trouble, because they have to deal with all the noise surrounding them and the people around them, and he didn't. So he had a very secure job with the telegraph. Now, interestingly enough, even though the other people in the room with him didn't bother him, he requested a night shift. And do you know why he wanted the night shift?
Nobody else around.
Nobody else around, and it wasn't that they were bothering him, it was that he wanted to take the telegraph apart. He wanted to take the equipment apart and put it back together again. He wanted to know exactly how it worked. And this was wonderful for him because he came up with ways to improve and advance the telegraph, which, as we know, was high-tech at the time. It was the high-tech at the time. And so Alva Edison, and we're going to start calling him Thomas now, he has won patents for improvements to the telegraph. He's got quite a few, and he just keeps on going. He keeps making improvements, advancements. He's got all kinds of versions of it. And this is starting to make him enough money so that he can have a family. He can have a family, and so he marries a young woman named Mary, and they have 2 children. All right, this is Marion and his son Thomas Jr., although he affectionately calls them Dot and Dash.
That's funny.
It's funny. So there's Dot and Dash Edison, and he goes on. He has 4 more children. Mary passes away. She's 29 years old. Sadly, she's very, very young. And then he remarries. He had 3 children with Mary, and then he had 3 children with his second wife. But he's doing okay. He's doing very well with this, with these inventions. He doesn't want to be the kind of person that has the day job and he's an inventor at night and on the weekends. That's not what he's interested in. He's all in. He is all in. So what does he do with the money that he has saved up? Well, you may have heard of this.
Menlo Park, yeah.
Yes, everybody's heard of Menlo Park, and that's actually it. This is an actual photograph. So he bought this this piece of land, I forget the acreage, but it's got structures on it, and this one right here, this is the lab. And then down the hill a little bit is this home, and that's their home.
Now that's New Jersey,
Michelle?
right?
New Jersey, yes.
What is the time, what's the date, the timing of this?
1840s, 1850s.
Yeah, 1850, 1860s, yes. So this is the home that they live in, although Mary, Dot and Dash will tell you, and then William comes along after. There's a little William that comes along. This is his home, but he was never here. Where do you suppose he was? He was, yes, exactly. He was with his guys.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, he was hanging with his guys. That was the only place he wanted to be. He was constantly there. There he is. He's front and center right there. And these guys aren't just inventors. There's engineers, there's woodworkers, there's just all different kinds. There's chemists there. He needs all kinds of different types of disciplines in order to create his invention. Here's the inventions, I should say. Here's the inside of the lab.
Wow.
All right, everything you could possibly want. Now, he wants, his plan, his goal is to, come up with a minor invention every week and a major invention once a month or so. All right, so he's very happily going along in this. All things are coming together. This is a wonderful life for him, right? He's got everything he's ever wanted. And then, oh, does he get smacked right in the face with the reality of the times. The times are what?
They're changing.
The times, they are changing. Yes, Pat, they really, really are. As a matter of fact, something phenomenal gets invented and totally blows Edison out of the water. Do you know what it is?
The steamboat.
What?
Steamboat?
No?
Electricity. Oh,
Telephone. The telephone. Who's this?
That's, yeah. Great.
Alexander Graham Bell.
Oh.
Yes, the telephone. So before this, there's been the telegraph,
Yeah.
right? The telegraph. And now Alexander Graham Bell comes up with this phenomenal invention. Would you like to hear the voice of Alexander Graham Bell?
Of course.
Yeah, sure.
There it is.
Alexander Graham Bell spoke some of the most famous words ever when he used a fledgling telephone he was inventing to speak to his assistant. Mr. Watson, I'm here. I'm right now. But until recently, we've never heard his actual voice. Physicists have changed that by using 3D scans to capture recorded files on wax discs of the era and convert them into playable audio files. Plucked from the Smithsonian archives, the liberated recording features Bell through must and static, saying, "You are finally back. Bell had an elocution teacher father and deaf lip-reading wife, and had lived his life in England, Canada, and the eastern United States. Bell biographer Charlotte Gray said she can hear all of that in the recording, dated 1885, adding, quote, "The voice is vigorous and forthright, as was the inventor, at last speaking to us across the years." You are finally back.
Isn't that great?
Yeah.
Like, that's the first time, think about how often you use your telephones, right? How often in your life. That is the very first telephone call ever in history, and you just heard it. So, yeah, that's amazing. Well, you know, Thomas Edison was not thrilled and delighted at that at all. No, that just lit a fire under him. All right, this is his thoughts. Continued innovation is the best way to beat the competition. He wanted to best Bell. He had to best Bell. So he buckled down, and he's using that same technology, right? And what does he come up with? Any guesses?
Phonograph.
Ooh, good, Pat. Good, yes. He comes up with the phonograph. All right. Do you want to hear what he said into the phonograph?
Yes.
All right. That's him. All right. This is the first time any human or anything has ever been recorded, and this is what he chose to say.
The first words I spoke in the original phonograph, a little piece of practical poetry. Mary had a little lamb, its fleece was white as snow, and everywhere that Mary went, the lamb was sure to go.
Yes, I know. Isn't that great? Yeah. So he had to best Alexander Graham Bell, and he did. He was all over that, and he invents the phonograph, which is Greek for writer of sound. I thought Effie might like me to share that. So he invents the phonograph, and is that a sensation?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an absolute sensation. That is the greatest thing. All right, so now he's got it over Bell, because now people can record. There's recordings. You can record stuff, and of course that turns into recording music, and it's just absolutely amazing. And I'm sure there's some politicians that wish this never did happen, but It did. And he got great adulation over it. Guess what else he got?
A lot of money.
Excellent, there you are, Effie. Yes, yes. He got a lot of money, an awful lot of money. And so now he feels like with this success and with this financial backing that he can play with the big league, with the big guys. So if we're in the late 1800s, who are the big guys?
Ford
Ford, yes.
and Bell.
He lit up the Eiffel Tower.
No, who's big? Who's running the country? Who is running the country in the late 1800s?
Railroads?
Trains?
Who?
Carnegie?
Oh, good one, Carnegie.
Rockefeller?
Yes, excellent. Oh, good. I knew you guys would be
Who was the last one?
getting it. Rockefeller.
Okay.
All right, J.P. Morgan.
Yeah.
All right, those are the people that Edison wants to be with. He wants to be in their league. He's not in their league yet, but he wants to get there. How can he get there? How can he get to that height? The way he wants to get there is through
Electricity.
controlling electricity. All right? Electricity was known. All right? The light bulb had already been invented. He did not invent the light bulb. Okay? What the problem was that you couldn't maintain the light in the light bulb for very long, nor could you control the brightness. So there were some light bulbs that were actually in use, but they were so bright that people would be blinded by them. So what he had to do was come up with a way to create a filament that would burn at a steady pace. All right, you want to see some of his first tries? Yes, does that look familiar?
Yeah.
Yeah, that looks familiar, right? So he's working on this, and he's making some progress, but he's making somebody nervous. So he wants to play with the big boys. He's getting his wish. He's making some progress, and who's he going to knock out? Who's he going to knock off the top? Yeah, right?
Yeah.
And who's in charge of that? Who's cornered that market?
That was,
Rockefeller.
Rockefeller, exactly. Rockefeller, do you want to mess with him?
No.
he's going to.
You don't want to mess with him unless you've got somebody equally as powerful to back you up. All right, and so Edison does have somebody equally as powerful to back him up. Exactly, yes. All right, so now you understand it's becoming a perfect storm here, right?
Yeah.
You've got the most powerful people are in play. Rockefeller doesn't want the electric light because he's making huge money off of kerosene, and that's gonna, he knows electricity is gonna knock him out of the market. Will knock him right out of the market. So he does not want this to go through. But he needs to figure this thing out. He needs to get this done, and just as this is all starting to brew, guess what happens?
Opportunity knocks.
Yes, the thing that could catapult Thomas Edison into the stratosphere, even beyond the Rockefellers and the Morgans, was a young man that came knocking at his door. And we're going to find out whether or not he welcomed this opportunity or squandered this opportunity.
Tesla.
All right, let's talk about Nikola Tesla.
Yeah.
All right, we'll give you a little background before the two men meet. He's born July 10th, 1856, and interestingly enough, The night that he was born, there was a violent electrical storm. There was this huge, violent electrical storm. And while she is giving birth to this baby, the midwife is saying to the mother, "This is a bad omen." She was terrified. "This is bad, this is bad, this is bad, this baby is bad luck." And the mother of this infant being born, you know, the one who is supposed to be consoled by the midwife, is consoling the midwife. And she says, "Calm down, you don't need to be afraid, you don't need to be afraid." She said, "The only thing that this means is that this child is going to be a child of light." That's the response that the mother has. Yes, good for her, right?
Yeah.
But how appropriate a prediction is that?
Very appropriate.
Yes, when we know about Nikola Tesla. So Nikola Tesla is born in this violent electrical storm. He's born in Croatia, would be today Croatia. And here's his mother, Georgina, and his father. His father is an Orthodox priest, but it's his mother that's really, really interesting. She is an inventor herself. I don't know why that's happening. She's an inventor herself, and what she does is she invents like small appliances to help her around the house.
Mm-hmm.
That's Edison, integrated.
You think Edison is irritated with me? And
He's come back to haunt us.
But you know, everything's going out, like this remote is going out too. We just have a touchy connection. So I'm gonna do the best I can. All right, so she's a brilliant woman, and she is an inventor herself, and I just love this story. She encourages her son. So she has said that her baby boy, right, is going to be a child of light. And she encourages that in him because he starts telling her things like he's seeing visions. And what he's saying to her is that I get a flash of light and then I see something. One of these things that he saw, and he related to his uncle, he was with his uncle, he said he saw himself near a big waterfall and he had a big wheel. So remember that when he's little, he says he saw himself by a giant, in the Americas. He went to America and he saw himself at a big giant waterfall. And he had a big wheel. Now, you know, you're supposed to follow your father in his profession. That's what you're supposed to be raised up to do. And of course, Nikola didn't want to do that. What did he want to do? Invent. He didn't want to go into the priesthood. And then there's this really, really interesting story about when he was about to go off to seminary school, because that's what the father insisted that he do. He got deathly ill, and he was confined to his bed for about 9 months, and everybody thought he was going to die. And then the father went in to visit him on one of these occasions, and Nikola said to him, if I recover, I would really like to go and learn about inventions. And the father said to him, if you recover, I will allow you to do that. And then instantly he made the most miraculous recovery. Yeah, he just miraculously jumped up out of bed. Everybody was so surprised and happy. And so he went off to school. And there's a whole story I can't get into all the details about this. I have to just kind of gloss over their lives because there's a lot here. So he goes to school, and ultimately he gets a job. He gets a job in Paris, and guess who he's working for? He's working for the Edison plant in Paris.
Oh my.
All right, so he's working for the Thomas Edison plant in Paris, and the manager there is so impressed with Nikola that he sends him over with a letter of recommendation that's glowing, a glowing letter of recommendation to Edison himself. And unfortunately, it was a little bit too glowing because the manager said in this letter, there are only two people I know at this level of intelligence, you and the young man I'm sending you. Well, Edison, I don't know how well he accepted that, but Nikola Tesla does get on a boat. He goes to America. He's got 4 cents in his pocket.
Wow.
4 cents in his pocket when he arrives. He's got nothing but 4 cents and this letter from the manager from the Paris plant, hands it to Edison, and then Edison hires him. Now, in the meantime, Edison had figured out a filament in the bulb that would maintain and be controlled both the duration and the power of the light. And so, of course, this is wonderful, great news. So he's got the phonograph, and now he's got this. And how is he doing this? How is he maintaining the light and controlling the light?
Direct comment.
With direct current. Yes, he's doing it with direct current. Now, the only problem with that is you need these huge generators, and it will only travel for just so far. It can't go too far. All right? So that's a problem. And to solve the problem, people are promoting this idea of alternating current. Okay? And alternating current, if we can figure that out, would help the electricity to go further, to go down the cables, go down the lines much further. All right, so now there's this debate between alternating current and direct current. All right. Edison offers all the guys in his lab $50,000 if you can solve the problem of alternating current. Guess who does it? Yes, Tesla figures it out. Okay, he goes to Edison, and he's fully expecting this bonus of $50,000. And guess what Edison says to him?
You work for me, you don't get it.
He said, "You don't understand American humor. I was just joking."
That's worse.
That's awful.
I was just joking. You couldn't possibly have thought that I was serious. So Tesla gets very mad. I don't blame him. And he walks out. Tesla worked for Edison for about 6 months. That's it. For about 6 months. He walks out, and in order to support himself, he got a job digging ditches. And guess who he was working for? No, he was working for the Edison company, digging ditches for their underground cables.
He's going to break them.
Do you believe that? He's digging ditches for the Edison company. Yeah, so he did that for about a year, but he's working towards opening his own lab, and he needs backers. Guess who he runs into and finds a friend in? Yes, exactly, Esther. That's George Westinghouse. So George, yeah, you know Westinghouse. Everybody knows Westinghouse, right? So he runs into George Westinghouse. Westinghouse takes him seriously, treats him in a respectful way, all right? They sign a contract. He believes in him and his AC, and he signs a contract and says anything that you make from your alternating current motors and generators, I will pay you X number of dollars. for the patents. And so Tesla agrees to that. So they're moving forward, and Edison hears about this. Now, rather than, work with this or compete against this, he decides he's going to run a smear campaign. A smear campaign, the likes of which you have never seen. In fact, it's so horrible, I cannot even show you a picture. I cannot show you a picture. What he did was, he wants to make it known publicly. He wants the public to believe that AC is dangerous. It's too dangerous. You have to stay with direct current. Alternating is very, very dangerous. It's a high voltage. And so what he does is public demonstrations of executions. And he starts out by executing a dog, and then the animals get bigger and bigger. He's making a big show of this. He executes, yes, Peggy, an elephant. He executes an elephant. It's filmed. You can see it. I don't want to show you. Bad enough I saw it. He executes an elephant, and he does this in a very public way to smear Westinghouse and Tesla. Then New York City, the city of New York, Manhattan, reaches out to Edison and says, electricity, we're wondering if, you're executing these animals, would it be a better, more efficient way for us to handle executions? How were executions handled before this? Hanging, exactly. What if we did, what do you think? What do you think about this? We want your opinion on this. Thomas Edison, he decides that this is a golden opportunity to further smear alternating current, because he designs an electric chair using AC. And when they tried this for the very first time, this too has photos. It was so botched that they literally roasted this man alive.
Terrible.
I think it was something like 8 times. They tried 8 times. And so all of this is Edison's effort to get people frightened of AC. All right, and so it's starting to work. Now Westinghouse and Tesla have a problem, but the World Fair is coming up, and that's an opportunity for Westinghouse and Tesla to show that the AC is not dangerous and to get them some publicity. So George Westinghouse, he comes in with a ridiculously low bid, all right? So at this World Fair, of course, electric light is something brand new. And they could do this spectacular, sensational show with electric light, and they want that opportunity. Edison bids for that, and other companies bid for that too, but because Westinghouse comes in with such a low bid, they accept that one and they get the gig. All right, here it is. It is a spectacular affair. It is absolutely beautiful. The buildings that they purchased. Look at this. Isn't that amazing?
Where is it?
Yeah, what's
Chicago.
Okay.
It's in Chicago, yes, yes. Here's another sketch of it from above, so you get to see how incredibly large it is. And the most sensational thing that happened at the World Fair that year was what happened when the sun set. What do you think happened?
The lights went on.
Yes, the sun went down and the lights came on, and people had never seen anything like this before in their lives. It was absolutely spectacular. And so what happens to the fear mongering about AC?
It's gone.
It's gone. It's gone, all right? Westinghouse and Tesla are a huge, huge success. So what happens to Edison? Well, J.P. Morgan, who had been backing Edison, is realizing that Edison is not making wise business choices here at all. And so he and the other investors boot Edison out of his own company. Out of his own company. And now it becomes what? General Electric. Edison is out of his own company. Yes. All right. So now that people aren't afraid of AC like they were, Westinghouse and Tesla are approached on an even greater, grander project. Do you know what it is?
Hydroelectricity.
Niagara Falls, exactly. They want to harness the power of Niagara Falls. And I'm going to play my clip before I lose power again.
Funny you should be losing power on the electric.
I know, right?
Here in Niagara Falls, 150,000 gallons per second pours over the top. 4 of the 5 Great Lakes of North America empty into the Niagara River and pour over the top of these falls into Lake Ontario to the north. As the water crashes over the top, all of the potential energy is converted into kinetic energy and comes down with tremendous force. Engineers knew that they could create a lot of electrical power with this. But the key challenge was not in creating the power, but in distributing it.
And if you know where to look, clues to how that challenge was overcome can still be seen more than a century later.
Wow, this is truly awesome. We can see the nearly 170-foot drop. That's the same drop as the Niagara Falls themselves, but we're over a mile away from the falls. And the water flowing through here right now is awesome.
Engineer Andrew Smith has tracked down the site of the Adams Power Plant, where tunnels redirected water from the Niagara River down this huge drop, driving electricity generating turbines. Only one building is left standing on the site.
Wow. It may look like an old warehouse, but actually it's a really, really special place. This is the Adams Power Plant Transformer House.
History was made in this building, and the man behind it was engineering genius Nikola Tesla. Tesla's transformers were the magic that made this groundbreaking power plant possible. Tesla's transformers enabled the power company to shoot electricity great distances across the country. A massive engineering breakthrough pioneered in this historic building, now considered to be the birthplace of the modern hydroelectric power plant.
The Niagara Falls Power Plant is now one of the world's largest sources of electrical power, providing up to 2.5 million kilowatts of electricity.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So yeah, I'm gonna go fast now. So what happens to Tesla? That is like supremely successful. So he becomes a great celebrity and everybody wants to hang out with him. He's now gonna do something even greater. He wants to work with wireless. All right, this is over 100 years ago. He wants to work with wireless, and he wants to show people that it's not dangerous. So he's working with wireless electricity, and he does it in a way where he lights himself up. He's doing demonstrations where he himself is being lit up. So, people are, he's in high demand. People are wanting him. Is he feeling secure? He is. Now, Westinghouse, in order to come in on this low bid, it cost him a lot of money, and he was going to lose his company if he followed through with his contract with Tesla. Tesla's feeling very confident, so guess what he tells Westinghouse? Yeah, it's okay. You don't have to pay me. I think it was like $250 for every sale of everything that the AC motors and generators produced. He would have been a multi-millionaire. But he saved Westinghouse's company. He tore up the contract. He felt like he had a solid future and that he wasn't going to need that. He wasn't really interested in the money, but he thought he was going to be okay. So he tore that up, and then he went about his business, and the next thing he did was he worked on the Tesla coil, and this is all about wireless. All about wireless. He's got several patterns of things that he has created, and then he's got some kind of pretty cool friends. One of his friends is this guy right here. Do you know who that is?
Mark Twain.
Yes, it's Mark Twain. Excellent, Peggy. It's Mark Twain. And while he and Mark Twain are kind of playing around with some electricity, Nikola Tesla accidentally invented, with Mark Twain's hand, the X-ray. He invents the X-ray. I have to go really fast now. I'm so sorry, and I'm afraid I'm going to lose power here, too. He also invents, through the wireless, he invents neon lights. We have colored lights. He invents remote control. So the very first remote control was a boat. He made this boat. Here's a remodel of it. Here's the pattern of it, and that's a little sketch of it. I know.
They need you standing next to it.
I don't know. I can't do anything. It's just going out. Now, what all of this wireless is leading to is what?
Radio.
Radio. And what does radio lead to? Television. And he's on his way. He's got these patterns. He's on his way. He's going to get there. Except a couple of things happen. First of all, while he's in his lab, he is receiving some consistent waves from outer space, and he reports that. Now remember, this is the early 1900s, and if you're reporting that you're receiving communications from outer space,
Yeah.
yes, the media had him for breakfast over that. Like, nobody understands this stuff. Tesla did, but nobody else did, and so they really raked him through the coals over this. And then unfortunately, sadly, like unbelievably, his lab, there was a fire in his lab, and he lost all of his work.
Was Edison there? Oh, yeah. Did anything ever come of those waves from outer space? Does make
No,
you wonder.
well, we know what they are now.
Oh,
We do receive patterns, consistent patterns from the sun and from stars, which are suns. So he lost everything. And when he lost everything, as he is right about to get into radio, somebody jumps in. Somebody jumps in, uses his patterns, gets credit for it, and not until much later that was rectified. At the time, Marconi is the one who is credited with radio and then ultimately television, and not Tesla. Yeah, yes, it takes years before that gets corrected. All right, so so we know what happens to Tesla, right? Yeah, he winds up penniless.
Really?
Oh yeah, he winds up penniless. He is, his friends, people that stayed true to him, like Mark Twain, people that stayed true to him, paid for his rent in a hotel, and he wound up penniless. He died poor. He died a poor man. But what happened to Edison? Well, Edison, he's booted off, we know, right? He's booted out of Edison Electric, okay? And that doesn't stop him. He has a very different outcome. What does he do? Well, he decides that he is going to become a miner, all right? So he goes into iron ore, and he develops an iron ore separator, and this is a huge failure. This is a big, big flop, and he sinks millions, it's his own money. It's not company money, it's his money, but he doesn't want investors. Why wouldn't he want investors?
He wants all the glory.
Because he doesn't want to, he doesn't want anybody to boot him out or tell him what to do with his company. And while he doesn't have investors, what happens? He had a huge, huge failure. This was a terrible, huge failure. But he comes back, he makes a comeback, all right? And he gets very interested in photography. Photography is a new thing, right? It's a brand new thing. So Thomas Edison invents something called the kinetograph. The kinetograph. And what is that?
Is it the beginning of the movies?
Like a motion picture.
Yes,
Yeah, that's what it
exactly. Yes.
The beginning of the
So he has the kinetograph, and then he has the kinetoscope. Okay? And this is the very first thing he films. I want to show you this. Tell me who this is.
Penny Oakley.
Oh, who got that? So that is the first. So that's the first film. That's the first short, continuous movie. Yes, it's not the first movie. That's the train robbery that comes later. But Annie Oakley shooting was the first sequence of films, and so now we have the start of the movies with Thomas Edison's Victoscope. Did you know that?
Yes, I know it.
Here it is.
There it is.
That's what it looks like.
Yeah.
Yes. All right, so we know how Thomas Edison ends. He's successful, a millionaire, maintained his name, and what happened to Tesla?
Yeah. He was,
Yeah, it took a
Went down
while.
the tubes.
yeah.
Yes, and it took a while for his true story. He would have been forgotten, but his true story comes out through people doing research from faithful scientists. And here's the truly remarkable thing about him. Do you know that while he was working on wireless electricity, he's predicting worldwide communications. What does that suggest to you?
Radio.
Radio.
Think bigger. Come on, folks. Get into the 21st century.
Wi-Fi?
World Wide Web.
Oh.
He's predicting worldwide communications.
Oh my God.
Wireless worldwide communications in the early 1900s. All right? And do you know that the government, when he died, the government went right in and confiscated
Always.
his work.
Yeah.
There's a surprise.
Because they confiscated his work. So he was working on, there's stuff he was working on that we don't know about. big time stuff, I'm sure. Anyways, he's an amazing man, and again, I've only kind of scratched the surface on him, but there's plenty of information if anybody wants to get on the worldwide communication system that we have now and find out a little bit more about Nikola Tesla. Now, next week, we're going to finalize our Masters series, the whole thing. Masters of Science and the whole Masters series that we've just been through. And I can think of no better way to wrap it up than with this guy.
Einstein.
All right, so next week will be our grand finale, and we'll be talking about this gentleman right here. All right, thank you everybody for coming. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you next week.